Welcome to Get Big Out Loud Radio, where we explore living the complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life with me, Kari Knutson, and Dr. Pat on TransformationTalkRadio.com. Are your thoughts keeping you small? Are you ready to get big? I will offer you ideas to transform what you are thinking into conscious action. Explore what is keeping you small and how to shift your behaviors in order to get big. Learn what is possible for you. Get ready to get big and live life out loud starting now.
Hey everybody, I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this amazing ride with the most incredible coach, mentor, counselor, you name it. And the show that Kari Knutson picked today is so perfect. And it's perfect from a lot of perspectives. Today in the show, you're going to hear some very incredible and personal information, but there's also a way to look at things in the world. And it's through the idea of mirrors and windows. Wow. You know, it's so funny. So funny that we're talking about this, Kari, because I did an episode with somebody because I was stuck on sliding doors. Do you remember that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that sliding door movie?
Yes.
And I don't know why I started to think about this, but I started to reflect on things, not in a bad way, because you can't undo it. I mean, you can't go and say, oh, I wish I would have stayed at Bell Labs for another 6 months and gotten a pension. Okay, that ship has sailed. But today's topic is different. It's about reflection, isn't it?
Yes, today's topic is mirrors and windows, and it is about reflection, both our internal reflection and external perspective getting, like what we get from others. So it's a really cool concept, and it first started from literature. An educator named Emily Stile first published the idea around how we can use literature to help students get a perspective like their own identity and think about how are their identities reflected in books and different literature that you choose that say, oh, I'm like that character, or that character has a similar story to me. So how you get self-identity. And then the other way was how can we use literature to reflect on other people's experience, so a window into someone else's world, and why both of those things are important. So when I first heard that concept, I really loved the idea of how can we apply that past even the use of in literature to our own lives, like how in my life can I have reflection and use mirrors, and how can I get perspective and look through windows on other people's experiences and hold both of those things. And today I want to talk about why they're both important and how they can help us in different ways in our lives.
Yeah, and part of what we're talking about here today is the embracing of them. It's the embracing of them. And you know, it's I'm learning something. Of course I know this, what I'm about to say, and I know you know it too. And I'm learning something. And yesterday okay, sidebar. I know you don't watch football or something, maybe not. Okay, but I was watching a game last night, and I was working. I've been working like bizarre kind of hours, but I was working in the launch of the network, and it was a good game. But you know what I noticed? Forget about the football game. I watched the face of Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, and you could see defeat. Talk about reflection. You could just see it. If he shook his head like this one time, he shook his head a million times. And I stopped and I said, how often am I doing that? How often am I looking in the mirror and going like this? And the universe looks at that. And Kari Knutson, what does the universe do with me going like back and forth with my head?
Well, and this, you said a beautiful example. And right, I don't know about football, but I could totally relate to the example of you watching someone else in that moment, right? And then feeling like, oh, that shaking of the head and that feeling of defeat. And then those are the experiences when we see in someone else and we've had those experiences, that is a way of a mirror reflecting back how we feel. And sometimes it's amazing that someone else having an experience and sharing it, and then us being aware enough and open to it can learn something from it. Like I feel that way too. Like how different is your life from a professional football player? Probably completely different, right? However, the feelings you're experiencing in those moments, like a lot of us can go to like, have you felt defeat? What is it like? And so sometimes having another way to express that or see someone else do that, like I felt that feeling too, is part of that reflection. I'm observing it in someone else and then internalizing, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
And even though it's hard, like in your situation, it's like not, oh, I can't wait to feel defeat. But the idea is it's great to reflect, like I'm not alone. Other people feel
Right.
this way. It's not just me. Sometimes we think as human beings, I like this quote so much, we are very unique for sure. Every one of us is unique, but we're not that special. And sometimes we think, oh no, I'm so special. I'm the only one who's ever experienced this. And we get into our mindset around that. And so part of having mirrors reflecting back is like, I'm not alone. It's not just me. I'm very unique, but I'm not that special. And that actually helps us feel connected to the greater world around us. It makes us feel less lonely. It makes us also feel sometimes we have these thoughts or feelings, and it's like, I'm just like, gosh, why can't I not think this way? Or what's wrong with me? Or I'm broken, or somehow everyone else has figured it out. And that's another example of being able to look and see yourself reflected back, usually through emotion, not even through actual experience. It's usually through how someone felt or
Oh,
what they did
oh,
in that moment that we can connect to. Like you're not a football player, but you felt defeat, same as
oh
him.
my gosh. I watched this man, and okay, let's get down to it and let's talk about windows too. In this, you don't have to be watching a football game. I mean, how many movies do you watch? How many things are you exposed to? You look at the face of your child or someone in your family going through something that you never thought they'd go through before, and you see that, you can feel the emotion. It depends on who you are. Okay, let's just be real. First 40 years of my life, I didn't feel anything because you know why? I numbed myself with drugs and alcohol. That worked for a while.
Yeah.
But I think I related to Aaron Rodgers because somebody made a comment to me not too long ago, and I can't shake it. So I got to go to therapy for this one.
Oh,
I'm not kidding. And but I know myself well enough to laugh it off. And the idea of watching someone who people think is at the end of their season, and I'm telling you, there were a couple of quarterbacks yesterday. I cried watching Russell Wilson for the Giants. I literally cried for that man. But you know what they have in common that I related to? Age. Age. They look at these guys and they're like, how much more juice do they got left? And that's a reflection. It's a mirror. It's not a window because funny, we cleaned our windows yesterday in the house. We literally cleaned the front windows. I do not know why or how, but we got to the point where we just couldn't see outside. So can you walk us through mirrors, reflection, and windows? Because clearly I was mirroring and then projecting. See, it's one thing, isn't it, to just mirror, but then what do we do with it? But tell us about how windows help us understand those situations, because you just went through this so much yourself.
yes, and this is so good, like how you're bringing up. See how you can see it now in play out in life, windows and mirrors, when you have a way to name a concept, and even the physical act of cleaning a window, and being like, oh, can I get a better perspective? Like, am I willing to see something I haven't seen before? And so holding these things. So I'll juxtapose the two of them. So when you think about a mirror reflecting back at yourself, your identity, your sense of self, your concept of who you are, what you value, all those things coming back at you and affirming that is a mirror back at you. And then a window is an idea, I'm looking out and getting perspective into the world, and I'm seeing things I may not agree with, I may not understand, I might not know the why, I might have a totally different experience with that, or I might have never experienced it at all. And then I can get a sense of like, whoa, someone else is having a different experience than me. And that idea, normally when something's different, our brains tend to go to judgment. That's right or wrong or good or bad. I agree or disagree. And so the idea of perspective getting is, what if it just is? And what if you can let someone else's experience, as you learn about it, just learn from how they experience it without having to tie it back into if you like it or not, if you agree with it or not. But the idea of getting perspective through a window allows us to connect with other people in all sorts of ways. And we have to recognize that our brain loves what we know. We like to think what we think. We like to believe what we believe. We like our routines. We like our behaviors. We like the food we eat. We like to be civil. Like we like to know what to expect. So our brain is a lot of time on autopilot, and we seek out things that affirm our experiences because that's what we're looking for. So to have windows and to really think about, how am I seeking other perspectives? How am I having other experiences that might enrich me? How am I getting out of my own world, and our worlds can again be pretty small in terms of like what we experience, into the lives of others in order to build empathy, in order to have also new experiences, also to test our beliefs, because sometimes we need to see something else and then reflect back, do I believe or not? Why or why not? And again, our sense of identity and self and concept, all those things are wrapped up in like, what do I know for sure about me? And sometimes we have to reality test that against something else in order to say like, nope, this is how I know who I am, because I'm not that. Or that's someone's experience of the world, and instead of judging it, I could just be curious about it, but I don't have to make it right or wrong. And so part of this is like balancing two ideas in our lives. And most of us can probably think of like, all right, do I have enough mirror going on? Because most of us do. We seek out things that reflect back our own experience. And in some ways we call this confirmation bias. So like, for example, if I hear a study that red wine is good for you, and it's on the radio, and like, oh, and a new study out says red wine is good for you. Like, that's a great study. I'm all for that. Oh my gosh, whoever did that. And then if they say chocolate is two, I'm gonna, this study is the bomb. I love it, right? But let's say I'm driving around thinking, well, that's a good study, and I'll just, because it confirms my beliefs. But on the other hand, if I'm driving around and something comes on the radio and they say a new study's out that says red wine is bad for you, I'm gonna automatically be like, well, who did that study? Was it even verified by anyone? Who did that? How many? What was the sample number? What? And I'm gonna get all up in its business because I'm like, I don't believe that. And so most of the time we seek out things that affirm our beliefs. So it's good to notice that most of us have a lot of mirrors coming back at us. And then where's the opportunity for some window? The other thing I'll say in this is, it isn't, we all need some self-reflected back to us to determine who we are. But one of the things that's important to think about is, when you have a strong enough self concept, like this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I might know is true for me, you can more easily dip your toe into other people's experiences because it's not going to necessarily change, right? Like you don't have to worry. Like the idea, like some people like, if I learn about other people, explore other things, like how will that change me? Usually it's for the better. Usually it just
Yeah.
makes you more open-minded and compassionate. But you still have yours. You can be with someone who you totally disagree with and understand their value system and not have to change yours.
Yeah.
But the through line is a connection, a human connection to someone else's experiences and their why and their their perspective that you just couldn't get unless you were willing to go for that window, right, and see out.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to encourage you to think about. Like in my life, how much window, how much mirror, and like how much, how are those helping me? And also in what ways, sometimes I'll say too, sometimes when we, I'm trying to think of an example, but like if you say to yourself, this is who I am, and you've told yourself things and it's been reaffirmed and believed, sometimes we believe things about ourselves that aren't true.
Yeah.
Sometimes we believe things about ourselves that totally aren't true. So we have to have a moment to be like, did I believe that based on what someone else said at a time in my life, or someone I was at some point that I'm not now, but I'm still hooking into this belief system that doesn't really serve me? So that whole concept, self-identity, self-concept, ego, all those the ways we know ourselves, self-awareness, why am I thinking this way? We have to, it's a really good opportunity to also ask ourselves, where did those come from? Are they still true for me? Do I have to believe everything I think? And that whole thing too. So that's another thing in the mirror thing that's important to reflect back at us too. And I'll just tell you just a quick story how this looked for me is I've always been a therapist forever. And so I feel like I can say when someone says, what do you do? I'm a therapist. And but when I started my own business, I couldn't say the word entrepreneur. It just, I was like, that's really weird because that's business people. I'm not a business. And I also went to school. I have a degree and I can prove to you that I have a counseling degree. So that I'm a therapist. I took all the tests. I've done the work. I'm a therapist. Plus people know what it is. And entrepreneur just felt so weird. And then like a public speaker or a professional speaker, I'm like, that felt weird because I'm in the world of academia where you get degrees and you go for things in that way. So it took me forever. I would say I started off saying, I'm a therapist who speaks sometimes. That's what I said. I'm a therapist who speaks sometimes. And then I would say I'm a public speaker after I'd say I'm a therapist and a public speaker. And then because professional, I went like, that's what I'm doing. And I remember I came home one day and I told my husband this. I said, Joe, one day I think I might be a professional speaker. It might happen. I can feel it. I just can feel this energy around, I'm gonna make it happen. And he said, okay, just that's great. Just a quick question for you. Did you just come from a gig? I'm like, yes, it was amazing. And he's like, did they pay you? I'm like, yes. And he goes like, have you had gigs before? I'm like, yeah, you know that. And he goes, do you have gigs in the future? I'm like, yes. It's so, isn't it so exciting? And he's like a pregnant pause of like, when are you going to say it? But it took me a hot minute to be like, I am a professional speaker right now. People are paying me money to speak. And I can say it when I say it. Not how many does it take, 5 gigs or 10 gigs or 100 gigs. Like, and it was so beautiful in that moment. He was reflecting back to me a new mirror. He saw me already. You are a professional speaker. And the challenge for me was to say, instead of I'm a therapist who speaks sometimes, to when people say, what do you do? I'm a professional speaker and a therapist. And to own it. And now it is part of my identity. And it's not, I don't like get awkward when I say it. Same thing with entrepreneur. I am running my own business. And that took me a couple years to be like, I am an entrepreneur. I had to say it like that. But that's also people in the world that I'm in now, in the business world, reflect that back to me. Other entrepreneurs say I'm an entrepreneur. So now my identity, my mirror has an adjustment to let me see. You know how in your mirror you have blind spots sometimes? And I feel like my blind spot is my new identity. I know I take a long time to like kind of ramp up to accept who I am now. So that's another thing I want to say about mirrors is sometimes our mirrors need adjustment and we have to look to the people around us to help us figure that out. So that's
No,
on
we
the mirror side.
do. We do. And, thank goodness you and I have people that we can go to. I had to call a friend of mine, Dr. Ronnie Duluth, up in the Boston area, Martha's Vineyard today, because I had a moment where I thought, is it just me? Am I making too much out of this crazy email that had confidential information in it sent by a firm in New York and copying my friends on it? And I'm like, and it's nothing bad. It's not like, I mean, but it was personal enough to really bother me. So then I start to think, don't make a big deal. So I call my friends. I call trusted people I know. Two of them, one of them is an attorney, does all my trademarks, Jamaica. And they said, they did what? That's what they said. I mean, it wasn't your husband in the same way, but it was like, you don't think that's a problem? Because part of me in the middle of launching 23-year vision didn't want to deal with it. So sometimes, isn't it true that what we can do with situations that either we look in a mirror or we go through a window can get fogged up?
Yeah, that's such a great way to think of it because both of those things fog up. Both of those things you need a defrost button sometimes. Both of those things, right? Like are hard. And so like sometimes it's good to think about them when you reach out to people. Tell me, am I crazy? Tell me, is this what do you think of this? Because again, that's a way of reflecting back our own experience. Sometimes we need other people to say, no, that was wrong. Or hey, you might be overreacting a little bit, or that doesn't sound quite right. Whatever it is, because sometimes it's too close. But I do love the idea of it. Get mirrors get fogged up and windows get too fogged up too, and that idea of cleaning them off. That's so true about
Oh my
windows.
God. We did inside and we went outside
Yes.
and did them. Now, I have to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised because preparing for the show, I get your show information, and so does Linda. So, you know, Linda got the show information, and both of us are staring at this dirty window. So, subconsciously, and the reason I'm bringing this up is there's a subconscious element to who we are as human beings. And to your point, how much of my own life in the moment of looking at a phenomenal quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't care what team you love, but you watch somebody like him and to see those moments of despair and vulnerability. And that's what I latched onto yesterday. Same thing with Russell Wilson. You know, I watched him come in at the end of the game, and everybody wanted him to really just make the play and win the game. And yet, his offensive line didn't protect him. But how are we viewing it? Here's another example. You've seen this. Okay. I do not get any money from this company. So I just want to say before I show everybody, okay, this is a cup. Do you see this cup?
Mm-hmm.
When I go to drink during a show sometime, I don't usually drink when we're on air, but for now, right? So somebody said to me, "Oh my gosh, is that the largest mug you've ever had?" And they had a thing about it. That was they were going through the mirror about the cup. And they had like, "Oh my God, how much caffeine are you drinking in now?" La, 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 right? And I said, "Do you know how valuable this cup?" This was me now. "Do you know how valuable?" This is all I said. "Do you know how valuable this cup is? You see this cup? First of all, it's stainless steel. Do you see what it says on it?
DD.
Dunkin' Donuts. A
Oh,
an antique Dunkin' Donuts mug." And the person is like, "Oh my God, how much is that?" Right? But the initial reaction, and you see, what am I willing to take in? Am I willing to take in, oh my gosh, am I drinking too much? First of all, there's no coffee in it. but you know, that's my 3 in the morning mug for the coffee. But there was no coffee in it. But I could have done something personal. I could have felt bad. Like, am I doing something wrong with that? And we all make ourselves vulnerable. But here's the point to what you said. And I really would love you to talk about this when we come back from break. Who are we? Are we educated? Do you know for almost 8 years when I started this show, I wouldn't tell people I had a doctorate. I was too ashamed, too embarrassed. No one in my family had ever graduated high school. I felt like I should be doing more in the world to take a traditional job. And I started the show. The show wasn't called the Dr. Pat Show. It was called Crust Busting. And I'm almost glad. But you know, time goes on. And you think I would have gotten over myself, but not, but not.
well, and being vulnerable like that and just sharing, I like how you're kind of going through different examples and situations in your own life if this topic makes you think about. And that's the goal for people listening too, to think about, okay, what does this make me think about in my own life? Like you were feeling particularly vulnerable in your personal life when this quarterback situation happened, right? And then seeing that you attach to that though, because it affirms your own experience. And again, you're not having that experience of the football, you're having the experience of the feeling.
The
And the
person.
feeling needs affirmation. The feeling needs I'm not alone. The feeling means
Yeah.
someone else or someone a way to understand it. And that's a kind of beautiful way to observe yourself in the world instead of also just kind of going through the motions that I'm feeling vulnerable right now. I'm feeling this is a tough spot. I'm feeling really seen. I'm feeling like I can't share. I'm feeling like a failure is part of this that I got to manage my just like this guy's doing. Like whatever it is, it's great because this self-awareness, when you talk about it, when you share it, that's part of too. It gets reflected back to you. It gets affirmed. You articulate how you actually feel versus what you just think. And sometimes things rattle around in our brain so much that we don't ever say the thing. I feel like this or this is hard. And there's power in sharing your experience so that others, it's funny because when you share it with others, they can reflect it back to us, or they can have it a mirror for their own, or it might be a window for them. And so I feel like it just, no matter how they take it, it could be a mirror window for them or a chance for them to reflect back. And that's again like reflecting back like my husband did to me, he's like, you need to clean that mirror.
No, he's right. Because,
Right?
and we'll talk about this when we come back, because here we are launching. We just launched on October 31st our new technology. We came out in the world with our phase one because you can't do it all at one time. And we launched a brand new website, but you can still go to Transformation Talk Radio and it'll take you to our new name because everybody had a consensus about the word radio. They didn't want the word radio. And I like to be a majority wins kind of person. I'm still attached to the radio, but originally we had Revolution. Oh my gosh, that caused a revolution by calling Transformation Talk Revolution because people thought we were going to be like going to war. So in a conversation with someone, we made up a word, revolution, Revelution. And so out of that came a new energy. And I want to talk to you about that when we come back. Why? Here's what happens. Here's this guy, Aaron Rodgers, who took responsibility. And so it doesn't stop there. Everyone else is weighing in. And it doesn't have to be football. It doesn't have to be a sport. It could be a company. I woke up this morning with a message from Verizon, something about some lawsuit. And I'm like, I don't want to know that. It doesn't matter what it is that gets your attention. But what can you learn from Kari Knutson about what to do with it all? So is Aaron Rodgers going to listen to the trash that's being out there, like the demise of the Pittsburgh Steelers? I'm from the East Coast. There is no such thing as the demise of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care what country you're from. But when we get back, how about the demise of your self-esteem? How about the reflection that you don't think you're enough? How about the moment where you get some help from a Kari Knutson family member or Kari or my best friend or Dr. Ronnie today? How about you then struggle to have the courage to take an action like Kari had to do, and you'll hear when we come back, and like I had to do. I have a press release coming out, and it was very difficult for me to write. Why? Because a lot of it is about me. Very hard to write. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Kari Knutson, getting big out loud. If you got a question for us, 1-800-930-2819. Give us a shout. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Kari Knutson's show, Get Big Out Loud. Kari, before we get going, because what we're going to talk about next is stories and, what storytelling is about and how this turns out in different perspectives. Remember dirty window, clean window, dirty mirror. Okay. But before we do, you did mention speaking. Can you tell people not only how they can find out about where you're speaking, but you're also a coach. So let's make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so you can go to knutsonspeaks.com. That's my website. And it has information about my speaking, my coaching, my show, and how to connect with me. It has my topics. And it's a really good place to find out if you're interested in like what I do or connecting with me. Knutsonspeaks.com is where to go to find out about it.
It's always a matter. So look, I didn't foof my hair today. Did you notice?
No, I did.
Yeah. So I was on an earlier Zoom call. I almost changed it over this comment. Okay. But I'm not that like, what's the word? I'm not like that sponge like. So they said, oh, dang, you look like Clark Kent now. And I'm like, is that like a compliment? Yeah, you got your Clark Kent do on. And I just thought, that's fascinating. That I thought, okay, maybe I do look like Clark Kent, but I don't remember Clark Kent having platinum hair. But that's not the point. The point is, what are the stories?
That's what I was thinking.
That's not the point. The point is, what are we going to tell ourselves? What's the stories behind the stories? And that's really where you are. Experience and time, isn't it?
Yes, I think what you're talking about too is when who's telling your story and like how it's reflected back to you. When someone makes a comment, the comment itself is neutral in that way. It's then look how you perceive it though. Like it comes up and like, well, is that true? Is that bad? Is that mean? Is that nice? Or what are you saying right now? Like, and this makes me think about sometimes when we get feedback on something, how we take it and we filter it through our own mirror of like, you know, how if I'm at an event and I have 100 people give me evaluations and 99 are good and one is like, nah, was not funny, didn't like it. Or actually, I'll give you one comment that kind of was a zinger for me. A little too much on the motivation reminded me of Tony Robbins. And I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be an inspirational speaker. And I think the chest beating of like everybody has their different style, but I don't want to be that style. And so to compare me to that was like what I'm trying not to be, a little too motivational. I wanted more stats. And I was like, you wanted more stats? A little too motivated. And I was like, what did you come to the keynote for? And then I was all in my head about like, what did you think a keynote was supposed to be? Like a review of some psychological stuff. I was in my head. And then, and then I was like, I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm Kari Knutson. I don't want to be like that. And I was like totally going off. And I thought about that's so funny. That little comment rattled around up here for way too long. And I had to giggle later about like, why was that hard for me? And again, this is really good though to notice when you're becoming self-aware, you can start to notice things that trigger you, things that are just kind of go right in and like affirm your experiences, things that you resist, things that make you feel seen and heard, things that make you that you kind of reject and feel like that is not me. Don't try to say it about me. Also, we've talked about blind spots. Sometimes you don't even see the thing that you are. So it's a really good
Yeah.
thing to start to be open about, wow, as I'm going through the world, noticing. And what I noticed about that experience was it was interesting for me that I got all these great comments, and then I spent so much time persevering on one person who I just wasn't for them. And so the lesson is I'm not for everyone. And that's okay. I'm not supposed to be for everyone. And also that feedback wasn't so egregious that like, but I first took it that way. So like when I can have a sense of my own self in the world, I can manage those different perspectives coming at me and decide sometimes what do I take in? What do I block? And I also can look at myself, what am I blocking in my own mind that could be use some opening? And again, it's what a beautiful process if
Yeah.
you're open to it. And if you're open to thinking about this idea, like how you will start to notice in your life like this happening. And then again, the good part of this story is like it didn't then affect me for weeks and weeks. It was like a day and let's say like a day and a half of like, why is this bothering me? Why did he say that? I'm like that. And then deciding to be okay and be like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take in what I can, but I'm also not for everyone. And this person had the comments themselves. Okay, you wanted more stats and research-based things for a keynote. I'm not that person. I'm not for you. And I don't
Send
want to
them
be
to me.
compared to
Yeah.
somebody else, want to be me. So again, I have my real strong sense of that, especially because when someone says they're a motivational speaker, I'm always like, oh yeah, motivate me. What are you gonna do? Jazz hands?
Oh my
So
God.
that I take
I'm
even
not even
more.
gonna.
It's just like when I take even more, I'm not like Tony Robbins. I'm like Kari Knudsen. So anyway, all that to say, we see these all around. I mean, I bet right now people are thinking about, oh my gosh, this is look at this situation, look at that situation. Now that there's a name for it, and also the cleaning of the dirty mirror, sometimes it's from other people, but sometimes it's from us. And we
Yeah.
have to recognize that not as a bad thing or negative, oh, look, I'm failing and something's wrong with me. But sometimes I'm like, I gotta clean this mirror up. I have got to have a chance to see myself differently, especially when we're trying hard things, especially when we're doing something new, especially when we're out of our comfort zone. That comes raring back. Who are you to do this? Who do you think you are? Everyone's going to know. It's imposter syndrome, or it's like if it's not perfect, our perfectionism gets wrapped up in there. And so sometimes we do actively have to be like, I'm reflecting back a new part of who I am, a new way of acting, of thinking. I'm reflecting back that I tried my best at something new or that was hard. I'm reflecting that I'm starting something totally new and I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm here for it. And I'm proud of my courage. And you reflect that part back to yourself. But you
Yeah.
start, when you clean off the mirror, you got to notice sometimes what no longer serves you. And again, instead of just unconsciously doing this, the power is in your conscious mind being like, look at me. look what I'm deciding, look what I'm saying, look how I'm
Yeah.
acting. And then thinking about finding things that reinforce that. And I just want to tell you one other quick story about something that reinforced, like I didn't have my own sense of identity. Someone has only known me in my life for doing my one woman show. This person is only in my life because of the show, has seen the show multiple times, interacts with me based on the show. And we were at an event, it was a networking event, and they introduced me to one of their friends, and this is what they said. Kari is a writer and producer. She has a one woman show, and she's a storyteller and actress. And I like stood there for a moment because everything they said was true. I'm producer, writer, actress, does a one woman show. I just hearing it through, they only know me
Yeah.
through that perspective, but that's like a limited window of what I feel like I do. And having and being introduced that way, I'm like, I did write a show, I did produce it, and I
Yeah.
did act in it, and I am all those things. But I wasn't open to that, and I certainly hadn't used that language. So sometimes other people's perspective of us, we have to like pay attention a little bit. Like that was really helpful and beautiful, and actually expanded my self-awareness and it expanded my self-concept too. So those kind of things can be really helpful if we're open to them too. Other people in our environment can help us expand and clean off our mirror, our damn mirror.
Yeah. And let's talk about this other thing too, because we have time. You and I both grew up with parental stories. And what do I mean? I grew up, I've never shared this on air, but I'm gonna do it now. I grew up, and I'm gonna paraphrase, with a gangster dad who married a child. That's what I grew up with. Now, what did that mean? Dad was a gangster, okay. But I grew up with that. I grew up with that being known in the small, I just grew up in the Bronx. So, like, if you grow up in the Bronx, they know who the people are in the Bronx, just saying. So, what was the good side of that? Nobody messed with me. That was the good side. So, what did that mean? Married a child. My stepmom was 30 years younger than my dad. She was not a child. She was almost the same age as my sister and became one of my greatest mentors. But what do we do with those childhood stories and labels? Now, it took me a while to be okay with all that until
Mhm.
my family and my uncles started to talk about it. But we all have stories. Am I going to identify that? I've never shared that on air, by the way. That's the first time I shared that on air.
I'm glad you shared it. And that's part of the sharing of the story, right? Because then someone will hear your story and be like, oh, naming that was so important for you. Oh my gosh, understanding who you were as a child and why you thought that way. And like also seeing who you are now. And I think that's really takes the courage. And again, you're in a vulnerable place. You're in your life right now. So you're finding ways to let that vulnerability come out. And it's probably affirming. Like maybe it's for you. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's
But
okay.
don't you have
I'm
similar stories growing up? I mean, didn't people want to put you in a box or categorize who your parents were? I mean, we go through that. And look at us. We're extraordinary in the world. I'm going to say that. I'm not just saying it to say it. It was hard for me to write this press release. I'm saying it because people have said it to me. And one of my greatest mentors, short-term mentor, was Shirley MacLaine. And the time I spent with Shirley MacLaine, albeit short, transformed my view of myself. And I got to be all of that. I got to be the daughter of, Mr. Truck Driver Tony, and the daughter of a beautiful woman who was young, who was extraordinarily wise. You see, why? She had a first child at 12 and second child at 13. So if you want to talk about wisdom, let's talk about that. But how about you? I also had some other labels growing up, which we won't talk about. But how about you? How did your childhood shape you or help you?
Well, one of the things that was a big thing in childhood for me that I never got to share as a child, what that was really hard was that my dad came out as gay when I was 8. And he knew he was gay before my mom and him got married, told my mom, but he said the therapist said just get married and have kids and it'll all be okay. And if in fact he did get married and have 2 kids, me and then my sister who they adopted from Vietnam. And we did this for up to 8 years, and then when I was 8 years old, he's like, "No, actually, I'm gay," and he had to essentially leave and go find his gay identity and gay life. And he had to leave our situation because he couldn't be who he was in that situation. And he also was scared to come out because at work in the 70s, you could be fired for being a gay teacher. He was a music teacher in a school, right? A K-2 music teacher, elementary, right? So he was first scared about that. So he had to leave his what he knew about himself to find a new identity. And so he joined like gay square dance, gay choir, and he joined other groups, affinity groups. He went to a gay church. He needed to be like, what does it mean for him to be gay? And so while he was doing that, I was growing up 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, but we never talked about it because we were too scared someone would find out and then he would be in trouble for it. So he joined this group called Prime Time, which is for gay men over 40. And that again, another way to say like I'm identifying with gay men of a certain age. So
Yeah.
this group had a dinner when and I think I was either it was high school, late high school or early college. And again, I wouldn't tell anyone about and my dad in my circle because I was so scared for him. But we went to this dinner and I was sitting there, and the people's wives came, their ex-wives came, and my mom had come, and my sister came, and I came to this dinner for gay men over 40 with their families. Guess what? There were other wives there of gay husbands. There were other children, and a lot of adopted children, by the way. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense too. And then I kept meeting person after person. I thought, I am not the only daughter of a gay man. And it just all night, I'm like, I'm not the only daughter of a gay man. Like I had grown up feeling like the only
Yeah.
person in the world who had a gay dad and who had that experience. And it was interesting when I finally got to meet some people who had that experience and talk about what it's like to grow up, what it's like to be scared for your father, what it's like to not be able to share with other people out of fear and real visceral fear of what could happen to them. Also, what it's like to try to understand when your family gets blown up by divorce essentially for whatever
Yeah.
reason, and then you're left with a secret to keep, a new identity to deal with, and then also like how you see yourself and your family. And so this I had not really started to even I think it was so just live your life that when this happened it was like a breath, like I could breathe. Like I
Hmm.
felt like something, I got a real window meeting another person's like, and seeing all these people. I'm not, very unique, not that special. And I had grew up feeling very unique, very special.
Yeah. Yeah. So don't forget, I shared this on a previous show with you before. My trademark song that I would listen to, I don't want to say to cheer me up, but it's true, was Creep by Radiohead. And when you think about who I was before I stopped drinking and using, a song like Creep where the line is you're so special, but I'm a creep. You see that just the influence of that, but so many other things. I mean, look, part of this is to say there are many, many different windows and many reflections. I mean, you going to school and the school you went to, right? Me learning in my doctoral program, while I was in my doctoral program, and I had a blackout that I'm classified in the neurodiverse category of a very unique, I used to say something else, but I'm gonna pick up your word now, but a very unique form of autism that I thought was just bad. I would never talk about it. I don't see words, I see images. I image everything. I'm really good at website design, not really good at writing papers unless I could draw them. But part of this, we go through and do things. You went to school in Washington, D.C., right?
Oh yeah. And this is a good example. We have talked a lot about mirrors. This is a perfect example of a window, a huge window. So I, at 28 years old, after already getting a master's and thinking I was going to work in higher education administration, having a job, and had a really good job at Harvard Medical School. My life is all like set up. Why at 28 then do you say, oh, I think I should get a master's in counseling and go to school for the deaf in DC and move from Boston? And literally, some people are like, what are you doing? Like, what's wrong with you? And I can't say this other than I felt it in my soul. Like, I'm supposed to go to this school right now. And I'm supposed to learn sign language. And I'm supposed to be a therapist. I'm not supposed to continue on this track. This is what I thought I wanted. And the further I got down, I was like, I don't really want this. I want something else. I was so fortunate to get to go to Gallaudet University. It's a school for the deaf. it's the only school for the deaf in the world that's fully for deaf individuals that use ASL. And it's set up undergrad, you can only go if you're deaf. And graduate students, they accept some hearing graduate students, but every class is in sign language. Like everything is in sign language.
That's
And
right.
so because I did not know enough sign language to get through graduate school, I had to have an interpreter for all my grad school classes in counseling. I also had to have a note taker. And because of my unique needs, I was classified as a student with a disability in a school where everyone uses sign language and you don't, then I am the language minority. And imagine me in 28. I've never been a language minority or had a disability or been in an environment where I couldn't communicate effectively unless by choice. Let's say I'm traveling somewhere. But this is like, here I am by choice for 2 years learning about not only becoming a therapist, but then deaf culture. What does it mean to be deaf? What is the
Oh,
culture of deaf people? American Sign Language, learning a completely new language and a way to express myself. And let me tell you, for every single day that I was there for those 2 years, I felt like the window was like wide open and I was getting so much exposure. And it was beautiful because it changed me. It
yeah.
changed me and it gave me an opportunity like I've like no other to really get a window into other people's world, but then not expect the idea was too, like I don't have to change who I am to interact. That was never the question. It was like, can I learn to be in this world? Can I learn from them?
Yeah.
Can I see what it's like? And in doing that, in learning about the culture, I was changed. But not a forced change, a willing change, and a
Yeah.
beautiful learning experience that was a big window that actually helps me in my life to this day.
It's a huge window. When I first got sober, there was a woman in the program when I was eligible to be a sponsor, and here I am in the program as a sponsor. And I was approached by somebody to say, and I'm gonna make up false names. And I was approached by somebody to say Gina would like you to be her sponsor. And I said, I'd love to be Gina's sponsor. Well, Gina was hearing challenged. I don't even know the correct term anymore.
But
Basically deaf.
you say either, and that's good because when you don't know the term, some people feel like they can't say the word
I
deaf.
don't know the
We
term.
usually say hard of hearing or
Hard of your,
deaf.
but no, she was deaf. There was no question. And she corrected me immediately. But when I found out, I had a choice. I don't know sign language. I had a choice. And I went to my sponsor at the time, who was a woman in California, Sedonia Cahill, Spirit. Oh my God. She said, you're never too old to learn something new, Pat. And I said, well, I don't have enough time to do that and save this woman's life. So she said, go pay for an interpreter. And so this is what we did. I talked to Gina and I basically said, look, I'd love to work with you. I can really help you. Our backgrounds were similar, but do you mind if we had an interpreter? And the woman that actually came over and asked me became the interpreter, and we worked together for over a year.
Isn't that beautiful though? Because you didn't just say no or I can't. You said like, let's try another way. And you let the deaf person lead. Like, how would this work for you? Right? Like, and also, can I show up to share an experience? Are we only in relationships because of a shared language? No. There's ways we were in a shared, like you said, I have a lot to teach you, I have a lot to learn from you. We would be good together. The language is the perceived barrier, not the reason not to do the thing, to
Yeah.
find a way around it. But that is, again, probably a window into someone else's experience who has addiction and
Yeah.
who is deaf and sees
Humility.
the world in a different way and who uses different language to communicate. Like that must have been amazing for you.
It was incredible. And I learned a new sense of humility because I had gotten a serious disease and it deformed a lot of my joints. And so I used to get teased, right? I would attempt to learn sign language. And because I couldn't do it as fast or I couldn't do it as well, what I learned is a new sense of humor from people out in the world that really, really had to jump through hoops to live a great life because we just don't recognize, that
Yes.
community well enough. And we don't recognize it in addiction and recovery. But I was okay with it as they made fun of me and said, do you know what you just said to me? And I say no. And then they would write it on a paper and it's like a curse word. But in the end, there's takeaway from here today. Kari, thank you
Yes.
so much for this show. And I know sometimes I bring in the football and other things, but It's
But
all part of learning.
here's what's so great about us. We're so different. I don't know half the movies you mentioned. I know I've never watched probably a complete football game. I don't even know I think tight end is a funny word. Makes me giggle when I hear it. I think like, I don't know what a conversion is and I know that what a field goal is, but I don't know. But I love that I'm getting a window into your world by what you share and what's important to you and how you use analogies, right? And it helps me open myself up to like, what can I learn? What is she saying? Because I don't know it. And so it like lights me up in a different way because I have no idea. Right. And so I'm learning. And I think it's good that we do the show like this because it gives me some empathy for other things. And it also sparks my curiosity. And I think the takeaway and the point of this whole mirrors and windows things is use it to get some self-awareness to see what areas of my life are my mirrors reflecting back. Okay, what's good? What do I need to clean my mirrors? What do I need to see? What ideas might be outdated? Maybe I need to like adjust my mirrors a bit, make sure my blind spots are covered. And also where there are so many windows out there, if I can remain curious and open-minded and interested instead of being judgmental, what might I learn? Who might I be? And can I balance these things in my life? And just being aware of looking around, you're like, do I have a lot of window and not much mirror? Do I have a lot of mirror and not much window? Where's the balance and where's the opportunity? And that's what
Yeah.
we're talking about today. Just think about what's the opportunity and use this concept as a way to bring more self-awareness and more understanding of other people into your life. And that's our human connection. That's the job, I think, of living, learning
Yeah.
about ourselves, learning about others.
Okay, website for everybody and how to get a hold of you. And I'm going to leave you with two little thoughts. Go ahead.
All right. KnutsonSpeaks.com. That's it. Go to Knutson Speaks, just like it's on KNUTSON Speaks .com or at gmail.com or social media. I'm all at Knutson Speaks.
So two thoughts I want to leave you with. Um, One thought in particular is a little funny thing. I had called the eye doctor this morning because I got hit in the eye with a ping pong ball in my right eye. And I mean, smack in the eye. I mean, because I was in a place that I wasn't supposed to be. And guess who was learning how to play? Linda. Linda was playing. I was trying to teach her. I was in the wrong space. And okay, so I called the office and I said, I got to come in. I got hit in a ping pong ball. And so ping pong ball. So that's not an injury. I said, okay, I am a championship table tennis player. I got hit with a little plastic ball traveling at about 60 miles an hour. And then they said, okay, that's an injury. So the last thing I want to leave people with on mirrors, right, and windows is the upcoming movie Wicked. We grew up with a view of the Wizard of Oz. Little red, little click 'em around, Judy Garland, and Wicked is rewriting the story. Why am I saying that? Because you're going to look through the mirror and you're going to see the rewrite, maybe as disastrous, horrible, do it. And some people are going to look at that and say, oh my God, is there really that depth to it? So thank you for today. And because of you, I am going to let this press release go tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning, just the way it's written. Thank you for all that, Kari.
You're welcome. I will be excited to read it and I'll be proud of you for taking that step in your new identity as someone who just hits send and moves forward in their lives. Someone who's ready to take on the next step of your own network, of your own business as an entrepreneur who is confident and who's going to hit that send button and then take a deep breath and move on to what's next.
And by the way, we should get on stage together because you get what people say to me. They say, Baccili, don't do any more academic statistic things anymore. You're a motivational speaker. I'm telling you, you are the Tony Robbins of women. And I said, I can relate to that. I love that. I hate stats. So we'll get together. Thank you, Kari. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Emily. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Dr. Pat.
You have been listening to Get Big Out Loud Radio, where we explore the complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life with me, Kari Knutson, joining Dr. Pat live every second Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. I will help you to know which thoughts are keeping you small in order for you to get big. Get big and live your life out loud. For more information, visit knutsonspeaks.com.